Of course, not all people completely subscribe to the quantity theory of money. That a 10% increase in money will lead to a 10% increase in price level. That is because this assumes when M changes, the quantity of production, T, does not change. Is that true? When money changes, when money increases, does it have an impact on output or not? The pure quantity theory of money assumes it has no effect on output. That is what is called in the literature as neutrality of money. That is, money is neutral. It does not affect the real output. But this is not totally accepted. Because, as you know, the process of money creation is also the process of credit creation. How does money come into existence? Money comes into existence because, let's say, the central bank of the country provides loan or provides meets the borrowing requirements of the government. Then it comes into existence and then it goes circulating. And the first chapter in any textbook on money and banking will be to talk about multiple creation of credit and multiple creation of money. Therefore, one man's expenditure is another man's income. That's the basis. Therefore, actually the banking system lends, and in the process of lending, deposit is also created. That is why Milton Friedman said a long time ago, inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. When cost-push inflation is provided as the basis of inflation, it completely ignores the fact that it is a monetary phenomenon. So the real question that arises is that is inflation a monetary phenomenon or not? So when you define aggregate demand, do we define aggregate demand in real terms or do we define aggregate demand in monetary terms? So according to some people, that cost push inflation is a myth. What really happens is when there is a cost push phenomenon, then what does a firm do? Let's say the wages go up. Then they go to the bank, say that my working capital requirements have increased. And when the bank gives him additional working capital because the raw material prices have increased or wages have increased, then this increase in the wages and the increase in the raw material prices has been accommodated by providing a larger amount of credit. Let me quote from Friedman. He says, it is true that the upward push in wages produced inflation, not because it was necessarily inflationary, but because it happened to be the mechanism which forced an increase in the stock of money. Therefore, this line of thought does not entirely agree with the fact that the cost push inflation or cost push by itself does not create inflation. Cost push has to be accommodated. It is that accommodation which essentially results in inflation. Tobin said, who does not agree with Friedman at all in general, said in one place that inflation is neither demand pull nor cost push, rather it is both. In fact, he went on to explain this in his presidential address to the American Economic Association in 1971. And Tobin said, I quote from him, post-war experience destroyed the identification of full employment with the economy's inflation threshold. You remember I mentioned that Keynes said it's only at the full employment inflation happens. The profession, the press, and the public discovered the new inflation of the 1950s, inflation without the benefit of gap, labeled but scarcely illuminated by the term cost push. Subsequently, the view of the world suggested by the Phillips curve merged demand pull and cost push inflation and blurred the distinction between them. So please note what Tobin has said. The distinction between cost push and demand pull doesn't stay. In fact, the one leads to the other.